am here talking with Alan Safahi. He is the CEO and founder of ZipZap, right?
Correct. I also sit on the advisory board for OpenCoin, which is a creator of Ripple.
We were just on a Bitcoin and freedom of speech panel together, and I found out that you came to the U.S. from Iran in the 1970s to get more freedom, basically, right?
Yeah, I came here to get educated, but found out that after I got here that the country had changed while I was out. So I wound up staying and, been here 34 years now.
And you've clearly been really successful starting some businesses and got involved with the Bitcoin community. Tell me, what is ZipZap for somebody who's never heard of it?
ZipZap is a global cash payment network. It basically enables customers to shop online and pay cash offline in their own local currency, local retailers, grocery stores, convenience stores, post office, and so forth.
And when you say global, is it truly global?
Well, we are in U.S., Brazil, Russia, all the Caribbean countries. We are expanding about 700,000 locations. We are expanding to over 2 million locations by next year, by third quarter of next year. So We're going to be in about 50 plus countries.
What makes ZipZap different from, for instance, like PayPal or something like that?
Well, first of all, PayPal targets people that have bank accounts and credit cards. So if you take the world population as a pyramid, they target the top of the pyramid. In the countries, Western countries, the countries that have very established banking systems and so forth. But when you peel the onion and behind that, you see that even in those countries, there are more people that are cash-based, that are credit card-based or bank. 85% of all online transactions in Russia, for example, is paid with cash offline. And in Brazil, almost the same numbers. People are used to paying with cash in their own local countries. What we do is we enable them to do the same thing on a global scale.
I see, yeah. So that's clearly something that's not really available, especially in the U.S., anywhere else. So.
Yeah, we are the first company. We call ourselves the API for cash. We work with developers and web developers, app developers, and fintech companies to let them integrate with our APIs to offer a cash option to their customers. It could be a merchant selling widgets online, or it could be a software company creating an invoicing module, for example, that now you don't have to just put credit card as a method of payment or PayPal. You could also add cash as a method of payment.
And how would somebody do that, like logistically? Like if I wanted to buy something from some merchant, I would have to go take cash somewhere and put it.
There are several processes. Let's say if you're buying a Bitcoin online, you go to an exchange like BitInstant. You choose to pay with cash. Then based on your location, we'll give you 3 options nearby that you can go to make that payment. And once you choose that option, then we generate a payment slip, which looks like a bill. And you take that with you and make a payment with cash. We follow the bill payment modules that these companies have built, these retailers. So the clerks are very used to that model. But you look at countries like Russia, for example, they have kiosks. So the model is a little bit different in Russia. You still start, online, going to an exchange. Once you decide to pay, we send you to a kiosk location nearby, and you just walk up and put in the account number we give you and put in the cash. In Brazil, we use the boleto system, which has been around for decades. That's a form that, it's sort of like our payment slip, but you can take it to any bank and deposit it and make cash payment, and the person who makes the payment will receive notification immediately that the payment has been made, and they get their coins oftentimes before they leave the store. So there are really good payment options around the world, and we just kind of put a layer on top of all of these good payment options and provide a really good, unique customer experience.
Yeah, and it wouldn't just be for buying Bitcoins, right? It could be for buying anything.
Yeah, anything. Yeah, you can pay your rent, you can buy music, you can buy minutes, for your long distance, anything. Yeah.
So I am guessing, and you can tell me if I'm correct, that this is probably the hardest to accomplish from a regulatory standpoint in the U.S. Is that right?
Yeah, if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. That's true.
Wow.
It's more difficult to do payments in the U.S. than it is in Europe or even in African countries these days.
Wow.
So
that's pretty. I think that's worth noting.
You know what's difficult is there's no uniformity across the states. Each state has their own rules, so you have to go state by state and if you're an exchange and you're selling Bitcoins, you have to make sure that you're licensed in each state, which takes a long time. Takes 2-3 years.
One's bad enough.
Costs a lot of money, exactly. And you get audited every year by each state, potentially. So when you're in Europe, for example, you just need one license from financial authorities, FCA, and that's good across all of Europe. A lot of people think that we are already 5 to 10 years behind in innovation in the U.S. because we have, all of these regulations that stifle innovation.
Oh, yeah, and I imagine not just that, but like the cost of compliance with all those regulations has to be passed on to the consumer.
The cost is obviously passed on. Every time you get audited by the states, they send you the bill for that audit. So, what's really more costly is the time that the entrepreneurs have to spend looking for licensing and staying compliant.
Yeah.
I think I'm all advocating that there should be regulations, and they should be in a way that is non-intrusive, it's not overreaching. But right now, these regulations are taking so much time for entrepreneurs, the people that have, that want to start up companies in Bitcoin business. They're spending a lot of their time dealing with regulations versus innovating. And that's what the danger is. The other danger is investors may shy away from investing in companies because they're not sure about the regulatory environment.
I remember just earlier today, we saw a panel here at the Bitcoin conference about investing in Bitcoin companies from a bunch of investors, and they were saying that they wanted to, one of the things like that was a red flag for them that they would avoid was a startup that would have regulatory liability, or like it might be sort of complicated to get around the regulations that are sort of hanging over their head. And I just thought that was, wow, I mean, it's incredibly unfair, I guess, to the person who's starting a company and they don't know what it's going to be like because it's the Bitcoin world, and now they don't get investors because these regulators are sort of threatening to put some law on them.
That's precisely why I joined a bunch of other companies in emerging payments to help found a self-regulation organization we call the Digital Asset Transfer Authority, or DATA, and this was just announced last night. And we're forming a committee to create the organization to help companies in emerging payments and virtual currencies to self-regulate in order to avoid government stepping in and telling us what to do. It's been a model that's been used in other industries.
Right. I was sort of thinking, is this sort of like the movie ratings?
Like the motion picture industries, yeah, exactly. They've been very successful at that, to self-regulate music industry and others. We need to kind of create guidelines for these startup companies and help them understand what the regulatory environment looks like, what the compliance issues are, and let them, be prepared for that.
Sometimes in those industries where they're attempting to self-regulate, the self-imposed guidelines, because they're afraid of what the regulators might do, often end up being pretty strict, or pretty harsh, maybe even harsher than an actual regulation would be. And I know that sometimes...
I doubt that. I doubt any of us would ever create anything that would be harsher than what the government has already created for financial services.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree to some extent that the financial services industry is not the best industry for consumers' perspective. If you think about it, we are probably the worst industry, even worse than airlines, and I consider myself among them. We take people's money and then we tell them where they can spend it, or how they can spend it, or with whom they can spend it, and how much. And when they don't do that, then we penalize them, right?
Yeah.
So, and we charge them fees when they do.
Right.
So it's not a really consumer-friendly organization. We are very cognizant of that. The group that I joined are all, very progressive-minded people in the payment space. A lot of Bitcoin exchanges, a lot of, Ripple, OpenCoin, other people that are, at the forefront of this technology. And I doubt that we are going to be succumbing to those kind of fears that you talked about. That we're not doing this out of fear. We're doing this out of, we think, a necessity to educate people, educate the government. A lot of times, these people in government are in their own little bubble, and they don't really understand why is there a need for Bitcoin.
Oh, yeah.
So we want to help educate them, but the way to do that is not to violate the laws. The way to do it is to self-regulate and work with the government to ease up on the regulation down the road.
Some of these industries that say, well, we're going to self-regulate, they're basically just predicting or the government has said, do this voluntarily or we'll make it a law. So that hasn't happened in your case, though, right?
No.
Because they don't even understand Bitcoin enough to say that,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, that's not the reason for this organization. Digital Asset Transfer Authority was born of the idea that there is a need for self-regulation before the government overreacts and creates something that's totally makes it even more difficult than it is today. As I said, we are already losing the innovation war to Europe and other continents because of all the huge obstacles we've created in the U.S. So we're not aiming to add more regulation. We just want to kind of define it better.
Sure, yeah. So, okay, tell me more about your involvement with OpenCoin. How did you get interested in that in the first place?
Well,
why?
I'm excited about OpenCoin. I think it addresses some of the concerns that people have regarding the mining. And for example, as a processor, as a payment processor, if it takes 10 minutes to an hour to get approval on a Bitcoin, that doesn't lend itself easily to being a payment processing platform. People want instantaneous gratification, so it needs to be a lot faster. With OpenCoin, because they have a ledger that they authorize against, you can get fractions of seconds. So that's one of the reasons. I like the whole network concept of tying in a bunch of different currencies together and making it easier for people to maybe email money to each other, for example.
Right, yeah. So, okay, that would get around the whole idea of block size and the confirmation time, like with Bitcoin, right? So the idea is that every 10 minutes a block is generated, and the transaction has to be included in a block to be confirmed. And so sometimes you're waiting 10 minutes for that first confirmation to come up. And some other alternative coins have attempted to address that by making smaller blocks, like that come out every 2 minutes or for every minute or something like that.
But Litecoin, and there's some markets for that, for the smaller transactions.
But that can create its own problems, right? Because then sometimes, like with Terracoin, I think it was once every minute, and then you have the problem of like miners that aren't caught up with the rest of the network, and they have orphan blocks or something like that. So
now you're going into the woods with the technical stuff that I'm not familiar with. But I can tell you that with Ripple, it's a cool concept. It's a concept whose time has come. I think it makes it easier to transfer money around the world, makes it faster to do payment processing. It enables you to go in and out of Bitcoin easily, which is, I think, one of the issues with Bitcoin, the cash in and the cash out problem. So if you have a lot of gateways and a lot of points of entry for cash and points of exit for cash, that would add value to Bitcoin as a currency.
Yeah, so there's a potential, I guess, that some people who are hearing this are not going to know what Ripple is. So how would you explain Ripple in a few sentences for somebody who's never heard of it?
Well, Ripple is another math-based open system, just like Bitcoin. It enables you to. There's two things. It's a XRP is the currency of Ripple. So there's a currency, and there's also a payment processing platform. And the currency is nice, but I'm really excited about the payment processing aspect of OpenCoin. So it allows you to, for example, transfer your Bitcoins to dollars and then dollars to Bitcoins on the other side. You can think of it as in the early days of email, if you had, you could only send emails to people within your own group. Okay?
Oh, yeah, like AOL or something. Yeah.
So you have CompuServe and AOL and others that they could only send email to each other. And now the internet came in and connected all of this together. So with HTTP, you can send emails to anybody around the world. So OpenCoin or Ripple is HTTP for currency. So you can, you have all these people that have Google Wallet and maybe ISIS Wallet, and they have Bitcoins, and they have a lot of different money in a lot of different pockets in different wallets. And now they can, for the first time, connect them together and move in and out of their wallet and their own currency very easily.
Cool. Yeah, I like that explanation. I had never heard anything like that before, but yeah, it makes sense. Great. So, do you think OpenCoin or Ripple is going to be part of the data consortium?
Yes, they are already. Yeah.
Oh, they already are.
They're
okay.
already signed on this.
And so, what kinds of things would would a member do, like to self-regulate, I guess? Like what terms do you already have laid out, I guess, as part of...
Well, we purposefully didn't lay out terms, but we laid out some guidelines that we all agreed upon, and it's all on the web. But basically, it's guidelines to...
Where can people find that on the web?
I would look up the hashtag data, DATA, or you can go to datauthority.org.
Okay.
And there's a website already for that. There's also a Facebook page for data, which is Digital Asset Transfer Authority.
Yeah.
There are some VCs that are part of it. There are some consulting groups that are part of it. And we are going to be recruiting lobbyists and other people consultants that can help us educate the regulators. So I think people should get involved. It's still a new concept. We're just formed a committee to form the organization. So a lot of the companies, Bitcoin exchanges and others can join as founding members still. I have a saying that I couldn't get a chance to say in the conference, which is, I think Bitcoin is the currency of the people, by the people, and for the people. So we need to look at it as, yes, it's a currency, and it's something that it's going to be around, whether it's in the form it is today or a different form. We need to embrace it and find innovations to build around it and on top of it. So I'm excited to be part of Bitcoin. I'm excited to be part of Open Coin as well with Ripple, because that helps facilitate even more Bitcoin in circulation.
Great. Alan Safahi, thank you so much. Where can people find ZipZap one more time?
ZipZapInc.com, so ZipZapInc, ZipZapInc.com. But we don't sell directly to consumers, so they usually go through one of our exchange partners to find us.
Okay, thank you so much.
Hi, this is Jason King, founder at Sean's Outpost, and you are listening to Let's Talk Bitcoin. Sean's Outpost is a homeless outreach in Pensacola, Florida, and we are proudly powered by Bitcoin. To date, over 13,000 meals have been fed to the homeless in our area, all purchased with Bitcoin and through the generosity of the cryptocurrency community. Read more about us at SEANSOutpost.com. Food, shelter, Bitcoin, everybody. Sean'sOutpost.com.